I always start on time, so please, like, make sure that you make it to here. The food won't go away. You can eat the remaining food later when we'll be done, or you can take it here. Just don't forget to bring the garbage back. All right. So good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. So last time in February, that was absolute disastrous thing because it was a thunderstorm, and then like 3/4 of people who registered did not come, and then I was like, oh my gosh, so you know what, if you ask me, I think when the weather is so nice, you should be actually outside, not sitting here. But hey, thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. So we are about to start our March meetup. Again, as usual, because I always have some new people here. So for those who do not know me, my name is Hetty. All the rest is less important. That's only one Hetty in Postgres. I work here in DRW. I'm a database architect, and I'm doing everything Postgresy. Also, I run PG Day Chicago. We will talk about it in a minute. And a relatively new thing, I'm the president of Prairie Postgres non-for-profit. That's organization which we founded with a group of my friends in October 2024 to promote Postgres education in Midwest states, because it's not enough in Midwest, just Chicago, and there is like a great lake area, etc. As usual, Wi-Fi is here. So for those who are new to this meetup, there is no one guest Wi-Fi with one login password. Whenever you come here and you need Wi-Fi, see me, because it's always one-time logins which are valid just for this one day. Now, what has been going on? So this meetup is late. Usually we have meetup in the middle of the month. So this time is later than usual because I was busy. So we had Scale, that's South California Linux Expo in Pasadena, and it was in March from 6 to 9. I presented a PG budget talk there. There were lots of interesting talks, lots of interesting meetings with community members, and they did live streaming, and the recording will be eventually available. I mean, right now, if you go to Scale YouTube channel, you can still see all recordings of the live streams from the room. So again, lots of interesting stuff. So then I was at DevOps Day, and that was absolutely new experience for me. It was super challenging because they did Ignites, and I thought when I signed that's the same lighting talks as we normally do, 5 minutes, but you know what they do? Who have been to DevOps Day? Like, all right, so they are doing 5 minutes, yes, but they are doing like 20 slides for 5 minutes, 15 seconds per slide, and slides are automatically advanced. So I rehearsed like crazy. I never rehearsed like for anything like this, but I actually had excellent feedback, and I'm very happy with this event. Upcoming events is PG Day Chicago, April 25th, and co-located event PG Data Day on April 24th. And coming next, PGCon in Montreal, May 13 to 18, and I will be there with the group who is organizing Community Summit. Now, PG Day Chicago. So can you tell me who already registered? Who here registered already? Awesome. Okay. Who is going to register? It did not register yet. All right. All right. So what we need? It's this building, 2 tracks, list of sessions. You can look at the website. So yeah, I forgot to tell, get your cameras ready, because there will be lots of QR codes and other information if you want to take pictures of what's going on here. For Chicago Park, there is a discount code. It's $25 off the ticket. Call for volunteers is still up, but I actually cannot take more volunteers. So if all the slots are filled, then I have a waiting list. So you cannot sign up as volunteer. So you need to sign up as attendee, and you can use this discount code. We actually are full with sponsors. So we have only bronze and silver sponsorship available. All sponsors who could have tables already signed up and paid and everything. So if your company wanted to do this, it's like a little bit too late. So next time, okay? So I had this conversation earlier today, so I want to tell everybody. I know that most people registered for the conference closer to the event, like a week or two before event, because you might not be sure whether you can come or not, or whether your boss will pay or not. So we are supposed to give our numbers to catering 2 weeks before the conference. And we are trying to estimate, but if you think that I mean, so try to make your decision whether you're coming or not, within the next 2 weeks. The conference is exactly 1 month away today. So I will be happy to have you if you register last minute, but just save me some grief. Please try to register earlier if you are sure that you can come. Okay. Now, Pitch Data Day. So that is QR code to register. It will take place in the same building, at the same place, so second floor conference center. This is organized by Prairie Postgres, and that will be free event, so you can just register and get them. Okay. These are the two amazing people who will be doing training. So one is Sean Thomas and the other is Leticia Avro. So they will be doing like 2 and 2, so both morning, both afternoon. So you can choose which session you want to attend. So Sean will be doing DB in the box, and Leticia will do introduction to Postgres design and optimization. So what else? About Prairie Postgres. So that is something I started to advertise fairly recently. So that is non-for-profit, which is founded, like as I said, to support Postgres education. We are trying to do more events with target audience, people who are starting with Postgres. So you are a student, you are a developer, you just start using Postgres. It's not something you've been doing. And we are trying to provide like onboarding with this amazing open source database. We are non-for-profit, so we have some starting capital. Donations are super appreciated. So again, if you go to the website, there's QR code, if you can donate, that would be amazing. Okay. Actually, hold on before I start. So one thing we are trying to do, we are trying to get more students to PG Day Chicago. Prairie Postgres donates money to compensate for half price of student tickets. So instead of 150, students pay 75. We know that for many students, it's still too much. So what we're trying to find sponsors who can sponsor, cover the difference. So if your organization, whoever, feel like you can sponsor a student to come to PG Day Chicago free of charge, it's QR code on the website. Please donate. We will be very happy. Okay. Now, new meetup. So that's something, kind of mixed feelings. Bad news, good news, I don't know. Many of you already received a message from me about a new meetup, which is organized under Prairie Postgres umbrella. So most likely, that is the last meetup which is organized by Chicago PostgreSQL user group. Next event, which you can see in April, will be organized by Illinois Prairie Postgres user group, and next one in May, most likely as well. So if you have time to stay after Ryan's presentation, we can talk about what's going on with this. All right, now to the talks finally, because I already talked too much, but you know I like to talk, right? What we had so far this year. So we actually had two developer talks, which was awesome. So we had Paul Wallen with his Hunitz Kafka talk, and we had Steve Zelaznik with Postgres, like why you should not use Elasticsearch. So basically, both of them use Postgres instead of whatever tools. And today we also have talk which is sort of related to what developers are doing, because Ryan Booz from Redgate will present intro to database migrations using Flyway. And there are many people who are using Flyway. So before I give floor to Ryan, what's upcoming? What is upcoming? Oh gosh, sorry, that's an old slide. What's happened? Okay, sorry, apologize. So I will talk because I actually, I didn't update the slide, sorry. Next event, some of you already saw invite and got registered. It will be in the evening of April 24th. So April 24th is super loaded because we have training and then we have speakers dinner, and in between I squeezed in one meetup. So that's why it's a little bit like a weird time. So after that, we are going to have May 20, and that was Developer Summit, which we were trying to do for a very long time. So now we're finally doing it, and I will send communications about this. Yeah, that's basically it. And as usual, thank you so much for being part of the Chicago PostgreSQL user group. I'm super happy that people keep coming. Some like Jerry, I hear for like, gosh, 14 years. Oh my gosh. Yes. Each time I see some new faces. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much to be for being a part of this. And we will talk more after Ryan's presentation. Now, Ryan, please, like, go ahead. Okay.
All right. Indeed. If you don't mind, and if you don't want to, I would ask if you don't mind, you just hide your head. I'd like to take a picture. I forget to do this almost every time I talk. And of course, you know, my company spends money to get me here. I just want to show that we did this. So I'm just going to do this and try and get everybody in. Yeah, that's pretty good. On your marks, get set, smile. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
all right.
To your expense report, right?
Yeah, I have to attach it to the expense report, exactly.
All right, great.
Well, let me say a couple things real quick. Number one, I don't know that anyone here knows this, but I think this is a true statement, and I'm going to speak for Hedy without her saying it. I think this is probably the most active user group we currently have in the States. Hedy puts a huge amount of effort into this group, and I'm sure you all know that. When I see it from a distance, all the work that she's doing, you're really lucky to have someone that cares a lot about Postgres and cares about the community a significant amount. So it's exciting when I have the opportunity to be here. I'm going to be back next month for PGA Chicago, which continues to be a really good event and well supported. So, all right, well, there we are. We can turn lights down, I guess, again, if that's easy. And then what's going to happen here? Are you going to do it? Are you going to do? Oh, that's amazing. It just switches back and forth automatically.
Exactly where you were.
Whoa, that's cool. All right. DRW must have some money. Is that how this works out? Just kidding. All right. This is going to be a little bit of an ad hoc talk because there's a couple of things. You know, when Hedy asked if I'd come, I've been working through some stuff at work, and I thought, this becomes a topic that I work with a lot of people on. And so I'm going to take a few slides from a talk that a longer talk that I do, and honestly, one I did portions of here 2.5 years ago or so, and then talk, but I really want to focus on Flyway community. What I've found is that as we talk about database DevOps, as we talk about managing database schema, Flyway is a great tool in and of itself. Before I worked at Redgate, I used Flyway for the first time 7 or 8 years ago when I was actually trying to work with Redshift, trying to find a way. I came from SQL Server. I was used to tooling that Microsoft provided, it well integrated into the development environment to do database projects. I just couldn't find that for Postgres, Redshift, and the others. And so, I did the whole look, there are other people, there are other migration tools, but Flyway just seemed to work well with what we needed. And so I didn't know anything. I actually didn't even know that Redgate had bought Flyway. I love Redgate. They've been a good source for me for many, many years as a .NET Microsoft SQL Server. developer. And so when I saw they were moving to Postgres and needed someone to help with the community effort, I was like, hey, could I do that? And then I landed like, oh, you bought Flyway and you're adding the stuff that I always wanted for Postgres into Flyway. That's really cool. Okay, well, I guess I'm glad I came. So then the other caveat, I've been traveling a lot. I've actually been traveling the last 2 weeks. Got home Saturday and here now, and I never forget my little bag of tricks. And I forgot my little bag of tricks. So I'm unfortunately I hate to be the guy that's hitting the keyboard to advance. I like to walk around, but I guess I won't this time. Here's my information. I'm happy to help in any way I can. If you want to connect, please do. If it's something I say tonight or some other way, you see something that's going on in the community and there's anything I can do, please reach out. I say this about every 6 months, like the blog goes up and down. It's going to start to actually have some new content here again soon. Life has gotten in the way in the last year, but I think that will happen. And probably some more stuff on the YouTube channel.
You did some posts recently, like a week ago, right?
I did, and so
I am like following you.
and we're gonna. I might very briefly at the end of this just quickly show you that. So here's my journey, and I just want to show you this to say that, I don't claim to be an expert in anything, but I've been in a lot of places and used a lot of things, and the vast majority of my life was spent in SQL Server when it comes to data and databases, and I got used to doing things there, like what we're going to talk about here tonight. And when I came back to Postgres, I was really frustrated that I couldn't find the same kind of tooling. And so that's kind of been this whole idea of continuous integration and letting your database function and work very similar to your other development work, right? Everyone's used to now checking in their node code or their, all the words are escaping me this exact moment. You know what I mean? All the front end stuff. And it just builds and deploys to a new thing and everyone sees it within seconds. And then you get to the database and like, whoa, this takes a lot of effort. And we have to make sure that no one busts anything. And then it has to go through 13 different environments and it just be slow. And so the goal is to try and find a way to speed that up and have confidence in it. So we talk about DevOps. This is a definition we've used for a long time. Now, Donovan Brown used to be at Microsoft. He's since retired. But he was their DevOps guy. And so we really like the idea that obviously DevOps in general is about delivering value, right? We go back 15, 20 years, the whole agile thing, however you look at DevOps, it's about providing value as quickly as you can to customers. But you got to have the processes and the people and the tools in place to be able to do that predictably and do it in a confident way. And so something like Flyway or other DevOps database tools are an opportunity to do that. So the way I quickly talk about this, I'm going to speed through this because I can point you. Actually, I meant to put a slide in here to show you. I do have a recording of this whole talk. This is what my process used to look like. So years ago, working on development, had my team, and we get in these situations where we had one main DBA. I was in charge of development, and I was the part-time DBA because he was the only remote worker we had at the time. This is early 20-aughts. But we'd get this idea for a feature and we'd do our work and make all the tickets up, get it into Jira. But then there's always, still to this day, there's that conversation that happens outside of the process. And so usually the CEO would come back from a trip and be like, hey, we need to change this. And we'd have all these conversations in different places and realize that we didn't have a good way to track if those conversations actually made it into the database change, right? Because someone had a side conversation. That's a really good idea. Why, when we deployed, did 3 indexes go away? And so, there's this over and over again, we would get to dev, we'd find some issues, we'd have to have the conversations again. Half the time, all those decisions wouldn't get back into the documents of for the development and so forth. Now, ultimately it worked, but at the end of the day, we're just trying to get to a diff of we're going from database version 6 to database version 7. And if it all worked, we were happy, but we realized there had to be a better way. And so this is some of the challenges that I think I keep seeing as more and more companies are trying to adopt this. The changes often end up being siloed, right? Databases, naturally, we just continue to often be our own little world. Or you're in development and you need changes and you really just have to kind of ask and then hope it gets implemented. And then at some point down the road, everything tries to tie together and you see if it works. And then the challenge for us has always been things like stale environments, right? If you don't have this process in place and it is more seamless for you, then you end up not wanting to change what you have, right? You kind of let dev be dev for a long time. And then when it gets really messed up, you kind of restore it and you start over again and see where you get to. But if you have these processes in place, you can keep everything more alive, more fresh. The expectations of development though, right? So these are the challenges, but the expectations always come from the outside world and generally your company, right? So if you're working on a product, it's the company that has expectations of what you're going to do. And again, if you don't have this process in place, it gets really hard. They expect that things are just going to work. You're going to make a change. It's going to get to production and everyone's going to be happy. They want all of your changes to be transparent. They want to be able to have that insight into how your changes are working alongside other database, other application changes. And then honestly, they just want confidence that the changes are well tested. There's that assumption that it's not going to get to prod until it's gone through all of the work in staging and testing and whatever those QA stages are. And so, the question I often ask as I'm talking to people about DevOps is, what does that look like for you in your situation? Some of you, I'm guessing, maybe like me, have been doing this for quite a long time. Some of you are new to this. And do you have confidence that you can make some application changes and actually see them through to production in a tested and predictable way? I just always like this. I found this years ago. I don't know. I just always get a laugh at it. I just always do. Hopefully, I don't know. Is he giving do people know who he is still? Is that a thing? Okay, good. Mini-me, yeah. So quick aside, really, really quick aside. I didn't tell you that SQL Server shop I worked for. We used to be part of Enron. So the owner of the company sold to Enron in the late 90s. And you can imagine what happened, right? For those of you who know Enron, collapsed. And then actually what happened is they bought the IP back out of bankruptcy and started the company again. Well, I used to tell the story because it is kind of an important part of the company history. And at some point, as I was interviewing people, I realized I wouldn't get a reaction when I mentioned Enron. And I suddenly realized, oh, they're too young and they have no idea what Enron is. And so it quickly was like, okay, I don't talk about Enron anymore. And so for us, this ultimately is kind of the picture of how we talk about database DevOps within, Flyway, Redgate, just kind of how we've come about it and what I really love to see. And the red parts are really what we're talking about today. It's having the opportunity to do development through version control and then allow continuous integration to make sure that those things happen as easily as possible and go through testing, QA, staging, production, and so forth. So we're going to show you that here in just a minute. And ultimately for me, we talk often about shifting left, right? So in the DevOps space, at least in the database DevOps space, my pitch always is try and do one thing earlier in your development pipeline and workflow. Oftentimes, more often than not, we end up doing these things by hand. We apply them to databases. We're not sure what gets in source control, if it is even in source control. And so often I'll just say, look, maybe start there. If you are not consistently getting your database code in source control in a way that actually allows you to see the progression of your database over time, start with that. Just that much. Even if you never get to continuous integration, start there because you'll be shocked at how easily or how much impact that has on your ability to support your database and your application. So choose, just if something tickles your fancy that we briefly talked about tonight, then go ahead and do that. Again, I'll skip over this. We're not going to talk about I'm not going to demo the kind of the paid features in Flyway tonight. Happy to talk about them separately because they can be helpful in your environment. And ultimately what we're talking about is trying to get away from this, right? So many of us, I always ask this, and this is nothing to be ashamed of. This is a safe space. How many of you have made a change to a production database by hand in the last year to fix a problem? Yeah. Okay. Last couple months? Okay. And how sure are you that those changes definitely got recorded where they needed to go and everything is copacetic? Okay, that's great. Not everyone can answer yes to that. The cool thing is that, yeah, it allows us to be responsive. A couple bad references in this slide deck, but anyway, it really ends up becoming Wild West, right? And it's really hard. And the biggest thing is the more databases you support, the more potential negative impact it has. Because you have 100 databases and you go to deploy a change and suddenly one of your most important client databases doesn't upgrade because you didn't realize that someone fixed a problem, didn't record it, added an index, there's a collision, and all of a sudden you can't get that thing upgraded until you can kind of do a postmortem and figure out what the changes were and move on. So it's really easy. We can code a bunch of scripts and send them to somebody to run them on the databases, and we're happy as pie. Kind of ends up looking like this. And the biggest problem is even if you start to get really organized about it. I told you I had this guy who was my only remote employee, and he came from the Enron thing. He stayed in Houston, and he brought all of the processes over from Enron to do the database migrations. And he felt like it was really organized like this, or maybe he even saw it like this, like I know exactly the steps to get through and I can do this right every single time. The problem is we could never really reproduce his work. We would sit down, I probably had over the span of 10 years, 3 or 4 times, I'd have him up. Okay, Joe, walk us through this whole process again, because we tried it and something still messed up. There's a batch script somewhere that was written 10 years ago that we didn't get and the file wasn't in the right place. And we just never had confidence. And so the reality is if Tim decided to join the circus, we were kind of up a creek. So we wanted to get away from that. And the 2 ways you can do this generally are state-based migrations or migrations, kind of script-based migrations. State-based is great. In the Postgres land, there are not a ton of tools that do this really well right now. There are more coming. Flyway is one of them. There are a couple others. It's the idea of saying, look, I know the state of my entire database schema. Somehow I've represented this database. Some tools do it in YAML, some do it in JSON, some do it in other formats, right? Or just plain SQL. But I know the state of what I expect my database to be. And then I can compare either 2 states or my state to a live database and get the changes. And then I can decide if I want to deploy it automatically or I just want to get the script out of it and then tweak it or change it or whatever it might be. I love state-based approaches in many ways. It's what I was used to, honestly, with some of the tools that Redgate used to make, and that's how we would use them years ago with SQL Server. The beauty is it really gives you that, one source of truth. Doesn't matter what your dev database or your golden master, no one touches it database is like, right? Inevitably, you need to have the state somewhere, and preferably in source control, so you can see the migration of changes over time. And it can be really good for drift detection. That's the situation where you made that change in prod, and now you're not sure if prod matches what you expected to be or not. And so before I apply the change, you can say, hey, prod is supposed to be at this version. Is it at that version, or is there a modification we need to deal with? And that can be, it's a really good way to use state-based stuff. And then there's migration-based, right? So a lot of you, I would guess, are probably doing migrations because the tool chain of the world has set us up to are probably doing ORMs because that's the tool chain of the world, right? Start with Ruby, and now it's gone to every single framework that I could ever think of, every language. I'm sure there's even I was going to come up with can I come up with an old language? There's probably a COBOL of this somewhere. Hopefully not. It's great. It's super easy for developers to say, this is the state of the objects, which become the database, and it just kind of does its thing. And every time we deploy a new version, it checks, and if it needs to, it updates the database. I mean, that seems so great. We've been at this for 2 decades now, and there are still a number of things that are hard for ORMs to do. They're just not as smooth, right? You have things like database, like functions, triggers, store procedures, depending on your tool chain, just honestly impossible. You have to write your raw SQL and put it in your upgrade. That's really hard then to actually track the changes over time when some of it looks like data objects and some of it looks like SQL. If you ever want to figure out how this whole thing actually comes back together, it can be really challenging. A lot of them don't do well things like repeatable scripts. And then, what was the other thing I was going to say? I think that's mostly it. I love talking about repeatable scripts in some ways. So a lot of people here, and that's fine. Some people, what I've been seeing more of is people will use ORMs, they'll apply changes to a dev database, and then they'll have a process for getting the changes from the previous version to whatever the new upgraded dev database is. And they'll kind of manage code that way and then deploy it with something like Flyway. That's an option for sure. Ultimately, there's benefit in either. I used to be against migrations because I hated the idea. Honestly, I used an ORM and we would end up with 300 ORM migration files. It's like, how do I ever know what the heck happened where, right? This is impossible. And when there was a problem, at least in .NET world, you had to update the MD5 hash and other stuff to make sure it worked. And it's just a big pain in the butt. And so I came to realize that, the one thing I do love about migrations is that control. However you get to that script, whether you're doing scripts for every little change or kind of a state, version 1 to version 2, version 2 to version 3, it's really nice to have that specific control so that now you can say, again, ORMs aren't great at, I'm creating a new table to get rid of some data in this table. I'm trying to maybe normalize this a little bit. And so knowing how to create the table and move the data and all that stuff can be really challenging. I see a lot of value in this. And then again, a tool like Flyway or others, there are ways to say, look, after a year and we have 50 scripts, we're just going to re-baseline and kind of start over again, right? We have that stuff in source control. We can go back and look at it if we need it, but let's kind of get back to a steady state and move forward from there. And if you have a way to get your schema out, again, that's all within source control as well. So any questions, just the basic process. What I want to show you is just how to do some of this with Flyway. I realize I've rarely just talked about the Flyway community version, what's possible, because there's a lot of power and people have been using this for 15 years. It's been a long time. So any questions? Yeah.
I'd like to just clarify the difference between the step-based migrations.
Oh yeah, sorry. Question into the mic for everyone else.
I was going to ask, would you be willing to clarify the difference between the step and the state-based migrations?
Between the
step and the state-based migrations.
Step-based? I don't know why I'm having a hard time.
Step-based. The step-based.
Oh, step. Oh,
yeah.
What do you know? Look, I say it right there on the screen. So step-based means you define what the migration is going to do. And it can be as small as one command, create table. It can be create 30 tables and 5 stored procedures and a bunch of indexes. That's your change. And it will, it goes through, migration script 1, then migration script 2. It's an ordered process. With state-based, it's kind of a, hey, this is what I expect. Make that thing look like this. And again, I don't necessarily know what's going to happen. And I could either say, give me the script so I can check it, or you assume it's just going to work. You say, apply it so that we're all in the same state and we're all happy. The other problems with things that I will say this with state-based is, you do it. So in Postgres, there's a common issue where you do a change to a table and it's a large table and you put a new column in that has a default value that is not static and it has to be calculated. And suddenly the upgrade takes 3 hours because it has to go through, 500 million rows of data and tables and pages and update that schema. And you have a lot of control over that, assuming the basic, that kind of problem with Postgres, where an ORM or those kind of tools often don't, right? They say, great, add the column. You told me to do this and it's this thing. And then you're in the middle of you're up at 3 a.m. doing your migration and suddenly it's 6 a.m. and it's still not done and you're wondering why your app database is still offline. And so it's that pro and con of knowing how much control do you want? Can maybe a state-based tool help you get to that final script, but then that's what you're going to manage and deploy on your own? Something to that effect. All right. So Next, I want to briefly then talk about Flyway specifically and the community version. So we just did this 2 weeks ago. So I should also tell you this. A few folks in the community have started a virtual meetup once a month called Postgres for All. Just you can join. And so last month, we actually did this 3-part. I talked about Flyway. David Wheeler talked about Skitch. If any of you have ever used Skitch, he's the creator of Skitch. And then I can never remember how to say her name. Glushin has PG role from Zeta. So this is Flyway community, which I'm going to show you in just a minute. It is open source. It's a Java. It's written in Java as a command line tool. Redgate purchased it in 2019, and so we still make and will continue. There's an open source community version. You can contribute to it. You can see it. You can get that code. Much like other things, obviously we've added some. We have paid versions that add some additional features. Things like schema management, as I've talked about. We can get your schema into a state that, as it's version controlled, you add a column, you see that object, and it changes over time through source control, which is really powerful, right? When did that column get added and by who? Script generation, other features. And then we also have this, which I just don't think people know. If you're getting started with something like this, Flyway is not hard, but yet it's one of those silly, dumb things. All of these migration things can be a little challenging to think through. Exactly what do I need to do? How does the folder structure need to be set up? And if I have a GUI tool that at least can help me get started and I learn it, then I can move on and use CLI. So I'll show you the tool. In the open source community version, we support these verbs. So these are the things you can do with Flyway. So obviously you can migrate. And there's a number of things you can do within the migrate space. You can baseline. So that's where I have, if you've never version controlled your product, your database and your migrations, you need to start from somewhere, right? So Flyway needs to know, this is the current state of this database. I'm never going to run this script because those objects are already there. It's this point forward. So you do have to let Flyway know for an existing project, here's the current schema, and then we can move forward from there. And so it's called baselining. So it's able to do that in the open source version. You can clean a database. So if you have maybe a testing database and you just want to clean the entire thing, delete everything, run all your scripts again to make sure that they still run, right? If I have maybe scripts that are 3 years old, there's a chance if I try and run them all to get to a clean new state of my current schema, there might be a script in there that something changed. Maybe the version of Postgres doesn't run that thing correctly anymore. And so you don't know that over time. You can validate info, and then there is some repair and check. So repair is the tracking table of the things that have been run kind of gets out of sync, and you can make sure that things are back in sync. And then the desktop app is cross-platform. It allows you to visualize migrations, which, again, for me, when I started to use Flyway years ago, I had a really young team. I'm from the Penn State area in Pennsylvania, so a lot of newly graduated comp sci folks. First job was with the company. And databases were hard to begin with because very few people get great training in databases in college. And then talking about this was difficult. So being able to actually visualize the scripts, what's going to happen has been really helpful to teach. You can run the commands. It has built-in Git support. So if you have source controlled the project, you can go ahead and actually just use the tool to push and pull and what have you. And you'll see I have the paid version here. So we do have schema and script generation in the product as well that we're running. And then there are currently four kinds of migration scripts you can run. So one is a version script. That is sequential in some nature, generally version 1, version 2, maybe you get a 1.1 in there because something happened and there's a fix. So those are versions. You can have a repeatable script, which is really helpful I tend to use, in the open source version, I use repeatable scripts for things like static data, right? I have that table of, you'll see an example tonight, I have a table of genres for movies, and I add a new genre, right? I only want that script to run if there's a change. And so repeatable scripts only run when the hash changes, all right? Hook-based, so we have, actually you say callback, but callback scripts. So there are many different places within the migration pipeline, like before migrate, after migrate error, all kinds of things. You can literally have a script called after migrate, and every time migration finishes, that script will run. So it's a way to do something that is always happening rather than just the repeatable. And then any of these scripts can be done in multiple languages. So you can do it in SQL. That's what I do. If you're a Java person, this is old school. Like that was how this originally started. You can do it in Python. You can do it in PowerShell if you're Windows folks. There's a bunch of languages supported that you can run these things in. So that's really useful. I helped a customer a number of months ago. They really wanted this. Like, it's your deal, man. They wanted, with every migration, they had a set of images they wanted to import into the database. And the easiest way to do that was to write a little Python script for them. And so after migrate, this would run. It would go find the images, if any existed, import them, move them, and that was just an easy way to make it happen. So lots of ways you can use that kind of stuff. And then the couple things that that are helpful to know about, it does support placeholders. So you can actually set environment variables. So let's say you want to run a set of scripts across many databases. And there's a hook, there's some reference in there. You can have an environment variable. So every time this thing runs, you can replace that. Obviously, it has hooks. And then this just came out of a conversation from like not even 2 weeks ago with Jeremy Schneider. He was asking me he messaged me internally first and was like, hey, how do you set the roles that you want the scripts to run as? Is there an easy way to do that? I was like, oh, yeah, I talk about this in my permissions talk, but I never actually I have a template for roles. I have all this stuff to do it well. And I was like, oh man, this should be really easy. And I don't think, and through this discussion, someone was like, oh, we just found this thing called init SQL. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. So that's an easy way. So if you're doing ownership stuff correctly, when you run your objects, you run your scripts to have object ownership, you can say init SQL set role equals, and those scripts will run as that role, which is really good. Last but not least, then there is the opportunity. We've been creating something called autopilot. It can be challenging to learn this whole process. And so it's an open GitHub repo. You can go download, basically clone this repo. It already has GitHub Actions or Azure DevOps Actions in there. So as long as you source control it, you get those actions set up, set a couple variables, you can actually run through what I'm going to show you here in just a span of 10 minutes. So it's super easy. All right. So that is Flyway. And so let's talk about what this thing looks like. So this is Flyway Community. This is Flyway Desktop. As I said, I'm currently running the enterprise version, so I do have these two other tabs that are not in the open source, but we allow you to see your migrations, right? So you can manage them right inside of this application. I should say really quickly, for this purpose, I am running everything locally in a Docker image. So I have a local setup that has all of my databases, my dev, my prod, my staging, my build. Obviously, these can be anywhere, right? As long as you can connect to it, Flyway can do whatever. It just allows me to run the demo without having to have all kinds of stuff set up. And so when I connect to any database, this is one of the things that you want to be able to see. So maybe I want to see what is the state of staging. And again, you could do this with the info command on the command line. But the nice thing is we'll do it here. And so you can see what has been deployed. Is there anything that is ready to be deployed? Right now, this is in a state of being, all the scripts have been run. We have a tracking table in the database that we manage. We check sums, all that stuff. And then from here, we can go ahead and just start something, right? So I just want to briefly show you maybe first step. So I can just do this here. I can add a migration. Shouldn't take this long. Did I hit the right button? I did. Huh. Okay. So we're going to do the first thing. I'm going to pretend that we are going to create a new table called customer reward. And so the script is just going to go ahead and do that. This is my migration script. I could do all kinds of stuff in here, but this is my new one. And I'm simply going to say customer reward. By using this, Flyway, if you have not changed the settings, will just automatically name stuff. And so it does it based on file name sequentially. So it will give you version 13. The last one I had is version 12, and then it gives a timestamp. Right? So in case someone checks in version 13 as well, and you don't have time to kind of mitigate that, in theory, you're not going to collide. And so I can just save that. So again, we support SQL, PowerShell. You can do bat files, command, shell, Python, all the stuff. If you have that runtime environment on the instance that can Flyway that's going to run the script, right? So as long as your host has Python installed, you could run a Python script. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And so I said it was versioned, and we're going to see that it does show as pending, right? So now I have a version 13 file, and I'm looking at the staging database, and it's saying, hey, I've looked, and according to the table that we manage, version 13 has not been applied yet. Now, I should mention, we do support undo scripts, but that unfortunately is the one thing that I wish wasn't behind a paid feature, but it is. I don't make that decision. That was made a long time ago. I actually had an early talk before I worked for Redgate where I was like, and by the way, I'm pretty annoyed at Redgate for putting this behind a paywall. I'm still annoyed, but anyway, sorry, Redgate. Anyway, don't show this anywhere. So I go ahead and do that. And so this is why I like desktop. Desktop allows me to say, I can actually see, all the things I'm allowed to do. So in the open source, in the community version, I would not have undo listed there. Again, I just have a license for this. So I can say, hey, I want to run migrate. I'm selecting to this specific server. And then there are lots of parameters. So as you start to look at documentation, they're all available here. So you can do things like, there's an option called baseline and migrate. So maybe it's the first time you've ever run scripts against this database, but it's a copy of your regular schema. If there's a baseline script, it will mark that first, so it doesn't run that script, and then we'll start through your versioning. So baseline migrate, you can talk about, what kind of environment variables, are you going to do any check stuff? So there's lots and lots of properties, and the thing that I like about it then is once you have done that, if you've added parameters or properties, you can actually just view the command that's going to be run. And so as you start to do command line stuff, maybe in your CI/CD pipeline, this is a really good way just to start to learn how Flyway works. Believe it or not, this was just the frustrating part for me as when I was trying to teach the folks that were new to databases and fresh out of college. Some of the naming conventions and stuff just were not as easy to understand. And obviously, we've added a bunch of configurations that make that helpful. So I can go ahead and do this, and I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to go ahead and run migrate. And so I have again, through desktop, I could take this exact command, I could run this on the command line, and it should work, right? It should go. Now, again, I have specific TOML files that have configuration variables, some of that stuff here. But as far as it goes, I should be able to connect and run that migration script. And so what Flyway's going to do is say, look, I'm going to look at that database. I'm going to see which scripts that are currently in this project have been run. And it realizes version 13 hasn't been run, and it goes through. Now, everything's done in a transaction, right? So every migration script is run in an individual transaction so that if there's an error in a script, that's the great thing about Postgres and transactional DDL, it gets rolled back. And then, again, through here, if this is where you want to have your project, we also have the visibility within Git. And so I have this project set up as a Git repository. And if there were a diff, so if you ended up modifying this file, this is really helpful. Again, in the paid versions where we have the schema management stuff, you can see the changes to schema over time, so each individual schema object. But then that'd be a great way to do this. So we can go on from there. Now, I'm going to show you what happens if you have this stuff set up within CI/CD. And so I have this project started from a GitHub action. And actually, that's not where I meant to open it up. I meant to open it up here. My apologies. So within here, I can go to the folder that maintains all of this. I can see I have a GitHub folder. Go to workflows, and let me just show you what's in this workflow. So if this is new to you, sorry, I'm not going to have a ton of time to go through this, but this is a general, this is just a GitHub action pipeline. Same thing that your development teams are using to build their apps, right? They have different stages, different pipelines. And just in here, we're saying, hey, this is how we're going to handle this. So this example pipeline that I have does a couple things. The very first thing it does, in this case, I have it set up when there's a commit, It takes that database. I have a build, what I call build database that can be thrown away. And so it connects to the build database every time there's a commit. It cleans up that database, starts from scratch, and then tries to run all of the scripts sequentially, just to make sure everything still runs. And that's my build step. And then it gives me a little report at the end and just says, hey, these are the scripts that were run and everything's good. That in and of itself, when I talk about shifting left, that alone, even if you didn't do the other stuff, that's another great step to take, right? I have a database somewhere that I can just have a sanity check on. Doesn't require any paid features. You can just say, look, on the build database, migrate these scripts. I'm going to clean it first and then migrate. So that's what happens with this one. And then for this specific example, once it passes that, it then is set to go to the staging database. I have 3 environments. I have the build, staging, and production. You could have 15 if you want. In the staging environment, I first have to say, look, it's okay to go ahead and try and deploy staging. So I have a step there to get a review. And then it goes ahead and it runs the scripts on staging. And it produces some other reports. Again, some of that is open source, some of that is paid features. So again, we're contextualizing where things are at. And then if all that works, we then do a drift check. One last step. I look at the production database, say, great, it passed build, it passed staging. I could have tests, I could have whatever I want in there. And before I go to production, I now want to do a drift check. Does production look like what it says it should look like? And if it does, then we'll go ahead and release it to production. So I've already migrated this manually, which is a step forward, right? You now have your migrations in a folder somewhere. You're using a tool to apply them and track them. That's a great shift left opportunity. So it's already applied there. What should happen is if I go ahead and commit this, we're going to go ahead and get an automatic sorry for no capitalization. So I'm going to commit and push that. And you'll see the little one go away. And I should hear fairly quickly. So I have a local job runner. There we go. So this then is where we talk about CI/CD, right? Getting to the step where you can say, hey, in some environment, and I'm such an advocate for just saying small steps. It doesn't have to be everything. Maybe you just start by getting your database and source control somehow. Maybe the next step is you just do this build step in a pipeline. That's it. Everything else is manual. You still use Flyway manually in some way, but like just a step, right? So you get at least a sanity check. And then over time, you start to get, you feel good about the predictability of what happens here. And then maybe you just say, hey, let's take it to the next step. Let's take it to QA and see if we can go ahead and deploy that stuff automatically to QA. And so this is building. And again, it's doing this local database I have. It cleaned the database, so it completely wiped all the schemas out. And now it's logging back in. It's migrating that database. It's basically saying what needs to be run. Notice it says all 13 need to be run. And so it runs all of those, as you can see. And thankfully for this demo, everything worked. And then we can complete the job. So now, like I said, this is where you can have artifacts. Any database environment will have them. So I can go to this pipeline, and I already have an artifact somewhere down here. My scroll just isn't working. So I already uploaded build artifacts. I think in this case it was what scripts were applied, just so we could check that it was there. I could open that up and see what it is, and you can do that as well. And then, hey, in this case, like I said, I have a pending review. I always give it the best message in the world. And then we say, go ahead and give it a go. And so now it deploys to staging. In this case, what we should see is that doesn't apply anything because version 13 is already applied there. I did it out of order, but at least I got the version script back into source control, and Flyway is going to see that nothing needs to be done, which is a great, again, knowing the predictability of what to expect. And then, last but not least, notice it was all it's checking everything. Nothing else needed to be done, and it's publishing the artifacts. Now this one does do, very quickly here, it does I'm going to let that go. Basically what this one does now, once it passes staging, it runs that drift check for me against my prod database. I'm going to let that happen and come back. So what can we do in migration scripts? Thank you. We can do anything that SQL can do, right? And that's where you have control. So I want to show you one or two very quick things, then we'll be done. As I said, we can have a, sorry for all the flipping. I try and use various screens so I don't overlap everything. We could have something like, so this is an example where, we can create an extension within a database. And I'm going to copy all this and then change it. And then this might be a good use case, maybe not. I'm not saying this specific query is, but one of the ways you could use those callbacks is I have a materialized view. Now, would I do this in my deployments? Probably not. I would have a job that's doing this every few hours, every night. I get that. But again, with a callback, I could say, hey, this is my migration. So I'm going to create a new migration script. It's going to be called V14. I don't know why this is taking as long as it is, and it's probably something I have running. Normally this is instantaneous. It's checking somewhere for something. Materialized view, you can name that whatever you want. I'm going to get rid of this little statement here. So in this migration script, I'm creating that, creating materialized view. Great. And then I can add, again, a repeatable script is really good for static data. So you have maybe an insert on conflict that you just keep adding to, so you can always see the changes within that SQL file. And in this case, I'm going to have to, and I did forget that, I'm going to quickly open this up and say, in my migrations folder, create a file. I'm going to call it after migrate. And I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to change the ending. So again, it could be in anything. Say yes, yes. And so then after migrate, I could say, this isn't that hard. I should have opened it somewhere else. Okay. I can go ahead and say refresh materialized view. Now, again, I probably wouldn't do this in an after migrate. And I say that because you're not migrating every day, right? Most likely. Or maybe you're migrating a couple times a day, but that's not the speed at which you need to update this specific view. But it shows you the power of the opportunity for what you want to do here. And you can see it's ready to deploy to production. I'm going to let that go so that I can check this other stuff in. Looks good to me. All right. And so now back in Flyway desktop, again, just because I can see it, we should have 2 commits. All right, so we have this after migrate and we have this version script. And you'll see we don't show the callbacks, at least in this specific UI. Something we've talked about. And honestly, I don't know why the team hasn't done it yet. It's not my call. And you can show only pending migrations. You see what happens. So I'm not going to go ahead and do this manually. I'm going to go ahead and do this one through version control and say some new stuff. And push. And again, nothing I've done here. So their production's done. We should be able to go to production and see if this thing really worked. That's not what I meant to do. Yes, I could open pSQL. I totally get it. Let me refresh these tables. We should see. What did I call that thing? I remember what I called the table. Reward something. It seems like this is not. Huh. I wonder if I'm on the, am I on the wrong server maybe? My bad, I could be on the wrong server. I know that production did. Let's just see staging real quick. Oh, you know what? Anyone want to guess what I did? I didn't put my schema in front of it in my fast demo, so I apologize. So of course it ended up in public, and you get to tell Flyway which schemas you want to work with. So my apologies, that was poorly done. I think in this other version, it went to blue box. Anyway.
Where did it supposed to go?
Where it's supposed to go in the blue box schema. So I just didn't give it the schema identification on it. And so again, in this case, this whole thing's been running. We see that it did its build again. It's waiting for me to say, we can go back, see all the stuff that happened. We could look at the artifacts, the reports to make sure things are good. You can send the reports. There's all kinds of things you can do. It's the best commit message ever, approval message in the entire world. And so you can see that things are going through the pipeline. For me, this is just, again, trying to give you an overview example of all of this can be done. Everything I've done so far today is completely in the community open source version. I haven't shown you anything that's paid, and I don't have time to do it now, and that's fine. Happy to talk about stuff. There's some really great opportunities there, but everything can be done migration. So I think it's a matter of saying, hey, where are you? And can you do any one of these steps to move forward, right? How do you baseline a database? The easiest way with the open source version, you do a PG dump schema only. That's your baseline, right? That's the current state of your production database. That's your new baseline. And then you just add that as a baseline script. When I showed you how to add, there's an option there for baseline. And that becomes your baseline. And all of a sudden, you can start to run migrate against a current database, and it won't mess up what was there, and it will only start to add the version scripts that you've given it. Repeatable scripts are really great. Again, maybe something like that. How do you manage your static data right now? Well, we have a script, and we have to make sure it runs every time we upgrade, and we have this thing, whatever. Maybe try a repeatable script. Now you're not even really modifying schema. You're just saying, make sure this data exists. What does that look like? I have an example that I have used previously, I think is right here. So when I say repeatable, is somewhere in here. There it is. This isn't the best example because it's an older database that I'm using, but you just have a non-conflict, right? So maybe I add the next great social network here, and this will only run when the script changes. And so now I can modify those changes. Now, again, this doesn't do deletes. I would have to do something else. Maybe you make this a merge statement instead if you trust merge. But then again, maybe that's just a first step. Choose something and begin to use the tools that are available to you to get this stuff through your pipeline. Do one thing. If you have questions about what that one thing could be, reach out. Let's talk about it. I'd love to help people at least make that first step. And I think once you start to understand the value of having all of this in source control, running it through CI/CD, it will change the way you see your database and the confidence you have that the process will work along the way. There's other features. Again, there's just so many. I don't have time to show you. There are some videos that are old. I'm about to redo a whole new set because we've added so many new things. So if you watch my space, watch this space over the next few months, you'll see some new things. Bundled, if you want, with the community version is a tool called SQL Fluff. Anyone ever use SQL Fluff? Anyone know what it is? It's a linting tool for SQL. So it comes with all kinds of rule sets, most of which are honestly pretty annoying because it tries to be all things to all people. But you can customize it. So you could maybe write a rule that says, hey, our functions need to be named like this and have no more than 5 parameters. And you could write that rule set. And with a community version, you can kick in SQL Fluff as long as it's installed. It's a Python tool. And you could, as part of your pipeline, hey, if SQL Fluff fails, don't move on, right? Give me the error and let's see what happens. SQL Fluff, actually, the thing I really love about SQL Fluff, there's a switch that, at least in GitHub, I don't know about others, it will actually, in the commit, like if you do a pull request, in the pull request, it will actually insert comments in the pull request when you run SQL Fluff. so that you can see like, no, this rule was broken. Here's what the rule is. So they've thought about that years ago. It's a very, very cool tool. Choose any of the above and find a way to kind of move forward and get started. I think you'll love the output at the end. Any questions?
Is it possible to have more than one script and how it figure out that? Is it possible to have more than one script in the in process and how it figure out that previous script is finished?
Great question. The way that Flyway currently works is it just runs them sequentially to completion. So V1 will finish before V2 would start. You can, no, I think that is now still a paid version. In the paid version, you can do what we call cherry pick out of order. So let's say you have that bug fix, there's something's on fire, you create a branch, you fix your changes, you merge the stuff, you have V1.1 between 1 and 2 because you had to fix something. You can cherry pick that thing even if above and beyond, another script. So you can say, and again, we're tracking everything that's run, so we won't rerun that script. We're just saying this needs to be applied right now out of order from the other stuff. There's a way to do that. Yeah. Yeah, question?
What question?
It's 2.
I was just wondering about partitioning. Do you have any special features for partitioning tables?
In the paid version, we do. Actually, just finished that and just released it. So in the paid version, what we do is we can actually look at your schema and we track your schema. So this is what we do. I mean, I can just show you here. This is in the both paid versions. This is a schema model. We can do things like track static data. So rather than doing the repeatable script, we can track your static data for you and apply stuff over time, apply, delete, whatever needs to happen there. And then if I make a change, like right now, have I applied any of this to, I'll just show you really quickly. Right, we have this, and that's on dev. So let's go ahead and apply this stuff. Nope, that's not what I meant. Really? Are you really not going to do this? Come on. Come on. Let's go ahead and apply this to dev because I had not done that yet. So we're just going to run this. I'm going to go back here. And so we do things like track your schema over time, right? So we actually take a snapshot of your schema model. And in this, we now support partitioning, sub-partitioning, all the partition types. So if you add partitions, hash, the way we currently have it set up, this is my recommendation to the team. If you do hash or list, you have to create partitions. We'll create them. We'll find those and create them, indexes, all this stuff. If you do range partition by default, we don't create the range partitions because the assumption is the ranges you have on dev are not like the ranges you're going to have on prod. There's usually a process like, help me out, PG Partman that is tracking those things, right? You can turn that off. You can have it do it. But you'll see, so in this case, these are the new schema objects that it found. And we'll show you any differences along the way. If I were to modify a table, you'd see that here. So yeah, Flyway at least in the paid version, we will track all that stuff. From a non-paid, I mean, it's partitioning. If you create a partition table and you create your list, it's just a migration script and let it run to completion.
Yeah, we do allow range partitioning, so.
Yeah, again, it can be turned off. When I talk to customers in my experience, I don't want my migration tool to be the trigger for when new.
Oh, no.
Right,
No,
yeah, so.
I just didn't know how, we actually use Flyway, so.
Oh, okay.
We have it separated. I didn't know if there's any new features pulling it back in or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, again, on the paid level, there is, and some things we can help you do and then generate the scripts and things like that. Yeah, good question.
Okay, can I actually,
One more. Oh, you have a question.
Then it will be one.
Yeah.
All right, so what are the most common frustrations with Flyway? What customers do not like, what they wish would be different?
Most common, say that one more time.
Frustrations.
Frustration.
Critics.
Yeah. So Flyway community, I mean, I would just say this, and I haven't been a user in a long time, but our biggest competitor that everyone comes to talk about us with is Liquidbase. So some of you might use Liquidbase. Liquidbase by default uses their manifest stuff, which just doesn't track with my brain specifically. But I would say that a couple of the biggest frustrations are things that we don't provide in the open source product, right? Doing undos, things like cherry picking would be great. I can't control that stuff. And then honestly, the biggest frustration everyone deals with, and that's something that we're trying to make easier and easier, even in the open source version, is baselining. It's like the concept isn't hard, but actually understanding what needs to happen just is continually challenging. And so again, something that I'll be creating some new stuff on, but yes, I still mess up baselining and I know what I'm doing. There's one over here. Let's do that one, then we'll come back.
I really enjoyed your talk. Is there a way to customize Flyway, like program a module to change
Oh, that's
in the open source version though?
It's a great question. Currently, there is not. That was never part of the open source version. It's a great idea. And I've had some people ask, like, could you, just you said, create a custom Java module in some sort and do it? Yeah. Again, the only way you could really modify that, even in the community version, is if you use those language-based scripts. You could do something along the way. I mean, that gives you a lot of flexibility. Before migrate, you do something that transforms your database, does a check, maybe does a dump, whatever. There's lots of things you could do using those programmatic scripts as the migration scripts. My closest suggestion.
Can you pull a pgadmin file into Flyway directly so that you don't need to do any version control in pgadmin? You can do it directly here.
Absolutely. Yep. If you have a script file, you add it as a new migration and let that go ahead and do the upgrades and stuff for you.
Just open up automatic.
Open it up automatically. Maybe I'm not.
You can open up any file.
Sorry. So the question is, I think you're asking, if I have a migration script and I want to change something, can I double click here and have it open in pgadmin? Is that what you're asking?
Say it again.
Are you asking, like, from here, can I double click one of these files and have it open in pgadmin to edit?
I mean, just click the pgadmin file into your.
Guess I'm not sure what you mean by a pgadmin file.
Yes, on
Yeah, maybe we can talk separately. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100%, unless someone, yeah? No? Okay. Let's talk afterwards real quick, see what that is.
Question. How do you fight with not completed migration script?
How do you fight the not completed migration scripts? A script that hasn't finished applying?
It's not finished applying and you need to go forward. For example, it's applied on development, but not applied to production. How do you fight this such situation?
Well, so again, that's why I'd say any tool, including Flyway, that helps you do this, you have that opportunity to say, I need to apply this thing out there. And then I'm going to backport it into development, within my version control in some way. There are some things that we don't do a super good job at that right now. Some of the things I've talked to the team about is, for instance, we don't allow you currently to set on our transactions, like a transaction timeout, something like that. So that is, honestly, you're right. There's some times where you don't recognize what's about to happen. And suddenly you're 10 minutes, 15 minutes into what you thought was going to be a 30-second migration. And it would be great to maybe set that to, okay, we need to rethink this because something is not working well. That's one of the things I've talked to them about, having that as a potential property for Postgres, because not every database supports that specific level of transaction timeout or statement timeout. So, yeah, good idea.
More questions? Okay, so we still have space for like another hour, maybe. So, Ryan, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Hopefully it's helpful. I'm here. I'll go to the airport whenever later tonight. But if you have questions, come talk. I'm happy to look at it. Oh, can I show you one other thing?
Sure.
I'm so sorry. I meant to do this earlier. So if you have, I'm going to very quickly connect to my VPN so I can show you this. So one of the things that we just recently released as a preview.
Give back.
Are you going to connect? Or you're not going to connect? What are you doing to me? You may or may not have seen it. It's a new tool that we're releasing. It's free, but it is not open source, and it will be free for its lifetime. We've committed to that. It's a tool called PG Now. And I want to show you to simply because I don't know if my VPN is ever going to work or not. But the goal of PG Now, I really wish this would connect. Let's see what it's doing. Huh. Are you connecting now? I don't believe you. The goal of PG Now, I think I have a connection to my local database here. I do, and it should be this one. Let's see what happens. This is a preview tool. This is not, we do not believe this is fully baked. Like that's not the intent. The intent is to get it to a point where it is. The team, so let me just share this briefly, and they wouldn't mind me saying this. Regate's been around for a long time, 25 years, and they really good at SQL Server tools. They've invested 20 plus, almost 25 years into that. They're trying to bring that stuff to other databases like Postgres. And so there are just some of those unique use cases that are foreign to the developers that have been doing this for 20 years. And so if this is interesting to you at all, I really encourage you to click the give feedback button and give them feedback. I literally every day I'm in the chat, I see the feedback that comes in, and they're like, "Oh, you never thought about that." I was like, "Yeah, I told you should have done that." And there's plenty of things I'm like, "Oh, that's a great idea. I wish I would have thought about that." And then if you're willing, Regate's a British company, so all development is done in Cambridge, England. And so if you're willing to talk to them, give your email address, you'll talk to some really nice English people, and they have great accents, and it would just be a wonderful 30 minutes of your time. And they would just love to hear how it could be useful and how you're using it. So what it's intended to do, great. Really? Oh, I'm guessing the guest network probably doesn't allow me to do VPN, might be my guess. Yeah.
So Ryan, you know what? Actually, you can post this information
Okay.
on the Meetup site,
Okay.
like, in the comments, because I meant to do this because, I think I even commented on your blog that I
maybe
actually
you
want
did.
to try.
Okay.
And if life is getting on my
Yeah,
way.
maybe that's the best
But,
way. Just if you go to
yeah.
the blog,
Uh-huh.
currently it's the most recent blog post,
Yeah,
talks about what this is.
Yeah,
and how
just
to get started.
leave the comment with the link.
Okay,
and
sounds good.
Awesomeness.
Sounds
Okay.
great.
All right. Think. Okay. Oops. Yeah.
Thank you. Good, very interesting, good stuff. So my company, a portion of my company does run Flyway. It
Okay.
was a company that we acquired a few years ago. So a couple questions about version support. I assume we're running the paid version, but I'm not even sure of that because I don't really touch it myself. But the most up-to-date version of Flyway, of course, it must support Postgres 17. How far backward in time does it go as far as major version support? Because I know when you're inspecting the catalogs and I forgot what the word is, baselining or doing whatever you do, it requires deep knowledge of the Postgres catalogs, and therefore you aren't going to go back till forever as far as version compatibility. So for today's version supporting 17, 16, 15,
so in the paid version that does all the schema stuff and then needs to inspect the catalog, we currently support version 10 and up.
From 10 and up.
So we made the decision quite a while ago to not support 9 because almost every cloud vendor is really trying to get people to move past that for the schema management stuff. Flyway itself, just connecting to a Postgres database and running a script is just the libpq driver. And so you could connect to a Postgres 8 with Flyway right now.
Yeah, of course.
Just to run a script. If you
so that team or those teams at my particular company are stuck at Postgres 12 because they're, I'm going to say afraid, but there's capacity reasons why they don't want to. I don't think it's because your product is difficult to upgrade, but we are nonetheless running a version of Flyway that can't go higher than Postgres 12 for the time being. So, but in your experience, is the Flyway product itself easy to upgrade? Like, do we just have to go clickety click and install the new one and
100%.
then make sure it works in our environment for whatever the peculiarities are of our Postgres versions that are?
Yeah.
So they would be able to go back as far as Postgres 10 with the newest version, which we don't care about because we're up to 12 for
Correct.
these particular systems. Okay,
Yep.
that's what I was told, because I actually said this today. I says, we can't do the upgrade because we're afraid.
Okay.
And they said, no, we're not really afraid, but it's like, there's nobody to work on it. Yeah, okay, I get
Yeah,
that.
I
but
mean, again.
It's
feel
a
free to
lame
reach out.
excuse.
It is a lame excuse, but that's okay. Databases are hard. They're scary to upgrade. I get it. That's why a good process helps. So,
Okay, and then as far as the runtime environment for the product, I think I heard that it's actually a Java. Is this Java software? Is that
it is Java, so it runs on all, I mean, it will run on Windows, it will run on Mac OS, run on Linux.
Windows, Linux,
Mhm.
whatever?
Yep.
So there's a native Mac app for this as
There's
well,
a native
right?
Mac. Yeah, I have my Mac with me. Even the desktop app is cross-platform, so I can run that and demo that in Mac.
Okay,
and
and
then
then
if you're
for-
doing CI/CD, we have Docker images. So in almost every major platform, GitHub, Azure, all those other things. If you don't want to, like, you could just reference the Docker image as a way to do the migrations. So you don't even have to install it within your pipeline, something like that.
Okay, good. And then if you're, a lot of times the migration scripts are just going to be SQL files that were written with your favorite text editor.
Yep.
But if they're Python scripts or Bash scripts and things like that, the runtime environment to support launching those scripts, that's on you to have that be sane on whatever box you're launching this from.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Makes sense. All right, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, I'm here. Please feel free to come talk to me, mingle, do your stuff. Anything. You have other stuff.
I would rather move everybody to the cafeteria
Okay.
and we will close everything here. And yep, we still have time. Plenty.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, that's why. Hey,